Close. I'm
Close,
actually
okay.
not a big believer in fake it till you make it. The
Okay.
way that I think about it is face it until you make it. Okay.
Okay.
Not faking it until you make it. So the reason I don't like that advice is, even if it applies for some people and it works, is because it doesn't work for most humans. You're basically telling another human to pretend someone that they're not. I don't think that's the key. I think it's more about saying, okay, let's celebrate the small wins. So when I was 17 and I started listening to podcasts, I didn't really know much about life. I kind of had a, pretty not the best, functional childhood. I was kind of like some average guy who just wanted to be an accountant, like everyone else, just a
Mm-hmm.
regular person. And then I asked myself one question, and it was a question by Peter Thiel from the book 0 to 1. The question goes as follows, Jonathan:
Mm-hmm.
what is the truth that you believe in that most people disagree with you on? In other words, what's something that you think is true that most people think is not true? That most people would say, that's not true. I don't agree with you. And it's the hardest question I've ever answered in my life, because it forces you to answer something controversial. If you say something that you believe that most people think is wrong, you have to say something controversial. You have no choice, right? That's how the question is framed.
Right.
So I spent a long time, and I still think about the question. I have a lot more answers today, but I still think about it. But what happened, Jonathan, is I would answer one question, and then I'd be like, wow, that's a cool insight. Let me write that. I go on to the next one. It's not really about faking it till you make it. It's about saying, oh, let me celebrate the small wins along the way. And I have
Mm-hmm.
a whole video on this on my channel. But another thing that I can point out is that also applies to public speaking. Public speaking is like juggling 18 balls at the same time, right? Eye contact, mirroring. How do I mirror the energy of this person? All the other stuff. So if you get lost into trying to fake all those 18 components, you'll just give up. Whereas if you say, okay, in this conversation with John, let's say it's my first podcast interview,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm scared like crazy, I can say, okay, let's just focus on being calm today. If I'm calm, I win. Done. Then you go, okay, let's do calm and look at the camera lens. 2. And then you celebrate the small wins. You go, well, I can master public speaking. I can do anything with my life. And then you're off to the races.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting view, because I've always been the kind of person that I believe in the saying of faking it till you make it 100%. That's a large reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I'm obviously not. I'm not currently. I'm not making a single penny off of this podcast. I'm doing it completely out of fun and yeah, for funs. And I've done like client photography, I've done graphic design, I've done marketing, I've done a whole bunch of different things with different clients of different sizes, and I would never been able to do any of this if I didn't, as I call it, fake it till you make it, because with the very first client of any of these things, I mean, I had no idea. I can tell a story, because a recent, one of the recent clients I did with marketing, they wanted me to do a what do you call it, a market analysis, and to be completely honest, I had never ever done anything similar ever before, and they were gonna pay me some good money, and I was saying, yeah, of course, 100%. I've done this 100 times. I know exactly what to do. And so we both signed the contract. Everything went on as planned and that I hoped. But in the end, I was like, okay, so how do I actually do this? And I literally Googled how to do a market analysis, because I had never done it before. I mean, I was familiar with the concept and what it is, but I had never actually gone through and done it. And so I watched some tutorials, read some articles, and so on and so on. And it turned out great. They were happy with their final result, and they paid me, and everything went smoothly. But that to me that is faking it till you make it. But I'm sure, since you had a different definition of this thing, how would you define that specific story that I told?
So that's a very good question. So what you're saying is accurate in the sense that we're both saying the same thing. We're just both using different words to describe it. So the way that I see it is pick the words that make sense to you and just do the thing. As long as you do the thing, I don't really care. For me, what worked better was by saying, okay, I don't know how to do this market analysis thing in the same way that when I first started, I didn't know how to coach an executive. But it wasn't that I didn't know anything. It was, well, I've coached a bunch of students. I'm sure I could apply the same logic to this. So the same thing with you. Yeah, sure, I don't know the market analysis, how to do this, but I've done a bunch of other stuff for that company. I've done a bunch of other services. I understand that company inside and out. If anyone can do it at this price, because you're not charging them $55 million for this thing, you're like, well, it might as well be me because I understand. So that's a very different line of thinking. And that's also very different from saying, oh yeah, there's some schmuck off the street and I can coach executives. Like that's like different, right? So I think the key is going back to what I was saying about celebrating the small wins. Once again, same thing. It's just just for people listening, just pick the wording that works for you.
Yeah.
If fake it till you fake it sounds like too fake, use mine. If you like fake it to me, then use it. As long as you take action, I don't really care. But the point is, use the technique that allows you to move forward. So for me, it was saying, okay, I don't know this, but I can probably figure out based on what I've done before. So let me figure it out. So let me face it until I make it. And that's always been the approach for me. But we're both saying the same thing once again, so it doesn't really
matter. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying.